maybe I've got it fully twisted, but to me, I was like, that's a breakfast like experience, brunch experience. You sit down with your friends and you have like a Sunday roast and maybe a beer. Like, I don't know, that seems like breakfast to me.
I never...
Sounds rogue now that I've said it out loud.
I mean... Are you an avid fan of the annual cheese rolling race?
Yeah, great. What is going on in the UK? I feel like there was a streamer who was in it this year and I was just wondering why he was there as well. It's like an American streamer.
Like a Netflix?
No, like a Twitch streamer.
What does that mean?
It was the big thing like during lockdown where everyone was like live streaming reactions.
Oh, I see, like a live streamer.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most bonkers thing I've ever heard of that anybody does ever. A cheese rolling race where you literally race the cheese. Is it like a metaphor for like the rat race?
Yeah.
The rat race that is capitalism, except it's just cheese.
So much dairy.
So much dairy.
So much dairy. Do they eat it after?
They yell cheese, I know that.
But they don't eat it? They just like roll it down?
They just roll with it. Rolling with the cheeses.
That's fun.
As the saying goes. Sarah.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Where have you come from today?
I've come from West Kensington.
And where do you come from in general?
I'm Jordanian and Austrian. I would probably identify more as Jordanian, but being Austrian has the benefits. Being Austrian is great and is part of the reason why I'm in the UK. So I can't just say Jordanian. I have to add that caveat as well.
Your parents are both Jordanian, but there's someone in your family who has Austrian heritage.
Yeah.
For that reason, you can enter, or you could enter at the time.
Yeah.
You could enter. I guess Brexit has kind of,
complicated
fucked them out for people.
Yeah. I mean, my brother now has the issue that I didn't have. We all had to pay the international fees because we never actually lived in Austria, but he does not have the option to stay after. He now has just what every international student has, which is you can stay for a couple of years, 2 years, I think, after your degree and just hope for the best. Hope you can get a job and that they would be willing to sponsor you. So it's a lot harder. I got very lucky and my sister got very lucky because we were there in time.
What was the key reason behind your move to London in the first place?
This is so fun to go back to. I always wanted to study English. That was my passion. It was like the only thing I thought I was good at. It's the only thing I really enjoyed. And English, England, London. So it just felt like a natural place to be. And my dad studied in England and he enjoyed it. He was in boarding school and then he went to Bristol University. So we had some degree of familiarity with the area.
Big up Bristol
Exactly.
alumni.
Really.
Did you go to Bristol as well?
No, I didn't. I went to King's in London, but my dad, has always spoken fondly about it and has been trying to get my brother to go there for like his whole life. Did you enjoy it as much as you did?
I did. I mean, I had a lot of hard days just because you're sort of navigating, trying to be an adult in a world where you're still a kid.
Totally.
And also having a third year abroad,
fun.
Navigating that. It was such a great opportunity, but also a lot of, do I have to become an adult yet? Was that uni? But yeah, no, Bristol's lovely. Going to uni in London, that's quite a decision because I always wanted to get out. And I've heard that obviously it's very expensive for a student in London trying to study, but also trying to like live a life. Is that something that you felt?
It was definitely difficult. I would say I was over anxious, I think. So I very much looked into living cost, what it would be like. So I kind of went in uber prepared for life in London, but you can't prepare for it. It was just so different to where I came from and in all the best ways, honestly. It was very much needed in my development as a young woman. I think if I didn't come to London, I would have felt super sheltered.
Because you grew up in Dubai, right?
Yes.
What's that like? Because I know a few people in the expat community and it feels a bit like a bubble.
It is a bubble. It's one of the safest cities. It has great education. It's glamorous. It's super new and shiny. But it was also just part of the reason why I wanted to get out. It is a bubble. I felt quite stifled in that environment. It also was very much like in flux when I was growing up there. It was a lot of people coming in and coming out. And yeah, London has that, but you have a feeling that people come into London because they love London, People went to Dubai because you earn quite a bit of money in Dubai, or you know that it's a nice place, but it's not where I want to live long term.
And so you came to London with this idea that you'll probably stay. Is that?
Yeah, it was a risk. I mean, you never know if this is going to be the place you want to settle. I still don't know if it's a place I want to settle, but I've been happy here for the last 8 years. So, it's been a good run at least. I don't know any other place I'd want to be. So I think I made a good call.
Have you visited around the UK? How do you find the UK in general?
Not too much. I've been to Bristol because my dad wanted to show us Bristol. You go to Brighton. We maybe did a trip to the Lake District once, but it's not like going to Manchester or going to, northern cities. I do need to explore it more.
I'm a huge fan of Liverpool, actually.
Never been. Would love to go.
Comparing Manchester and Liverpool, I much preferred Liverpool.
Really?
I think just because the people are so lovely.
Aww.
And the accent is just, I love it. People will just start talking to you. I remember we took the train from Manchester to Liverpool, and just people start talking to you whilst you're on the train, and it's a very different vibe to London. I mean, obviously London is where I grew up and that, but I think Liverpool is definitely worth a go.
Really?
Yeah.
How long would you?
A weekend. Because the weather isn't good, so I mean it's never. Actually, I was quite lucky. I once went and it was actually quite nice. But it's just the vibes are quite lovely, and also they're seemingly obsessed with the Beatles because they grew up.
Right.
Every tourist shop is the Beatles.
That makes sense.
Tell me a little bit about why you decided to go into journalism, because I am a huge fan of Sarah here. She is a writer that I follow.
That's very kind. It was kind of just luck, honestly. I studied English and film when I went to uni, and around, I would say, second year, third year, I felt like I needed a bit more experience. In Dubai, you're not allowed to work until you're 18, and there are certain restrictions. You can't just casually have a part-time job. So I felt like I was lacking in that.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
Yeah. Maybe things have changed since, but when I was growing up, it was like you would never see a teenager serving you ice cream. It was not very normal. So I wanted to see if I could find something close enough to what I was studying. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a script supervisor or work on sets, but I had no real concept of what that looked like. So I was lucky enough to get a very short, I wouldn't even say internship, just a quick runner spot for CBS News when Harry and Meghan were getting married. So they just needed some people to help carry some stuff. So that was where I came in.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? Just to be clear.
The royal wedding, yeah.
The royal wedding.
It was great. I got very lucky. It was me and a couple other young women, actually, who were doing the runner position. So it was me, a bunch of middle-aged men, cameramen, who are still doing what they're doing. They love it. Sound guys. And I was just carrying tripods and setting up positions and speaking to the talent. And that's when I realized I actually really enjoy this. I didn't think I would like that environment, but I liked the pace. I liked kind of how nothing that you did felt repetitive, right? Every single day was new. So I then kind of asked for a more long-term position with them, more of a freelance position, and it worked out. So I stayed with them whilst I was studying and helped out, and then worked with them after uni until I could find something more permanent. So that's kind of where it all came from, was that one runner job, and I really loved it.
A fast-paced job, and also a fast-paced place you live as well.
Right,
you must like that.
It's the anxiety, It's it just works. It works. Yeah, it's just, I hate it and I love it. It's the only way I feel productive, I think.
Yeah, some people use it as fuel for a good purpose. You can either kind of ignore it and cave in because of it, or you can use it. Stress almost, I guess, in some ways.
Maybe it's not healthy, but it's kind of the only thing I've ever known. So, it works.
You're used to it.
Yeah, I'm used to
you
it.
make do. So living in London, what are the favourite places that you like to go to maybe cushion that anxiety sometimes?
Oh, love that. I really like that framing. I feel like such a tourist in the city. I feel like every time I start to love something, it goes away.
Pop-ups.
Yeah, honestly, pop-ups are just, there were some places that used to be around South London that no longer exist post-pandemic.
Yeah.
But the one place that I hope is still around is a place near Edgware Road. It's called Alfie's Antiques. Beautiful, you have to go. The first floor is just chandeliers, antique furniture, just gorgeous, gorgeous. And then they have little brunch, breakfast, rooftop-y area. Very small, very quaint, and hardly ever busy. It's really lovely. It's one of those places where you go and you feel like you're not in a city.
Because Edgware Road is actually one of the few places I know of at the moment that isn't completely gentrified.
Yeah.
It does still feel like it hasn't quite, you got West Hampstead, but then you've also got Kilburn, and it hasn't really caught on to the artisan coffee shop kind of lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a bunch of small vendors in this one space, and it does feel like a community, even if I'm not necessarily directly part of that community. I can escape into it, and I don't know, you're right, it's just Londoners who are passionate about their items that they're selling, and it just feels, it's a great vibe.
Are you a bruncher? Do you brunch?
I'm not a breakfast person, so I do not love a brunch. honestly, I know, controversial. I really, yeah, especially sweet breakfasts.
Me
I'm
neither,
like,
actually.
okay.
If I do go for a brunch, first of all, I like the bottomless next to it.
Fair enough.
Second of all, I've become a bit more savoury now than I used to be. Yeah, I think when I was a teenager, I don't know if it's going through puberty and all the hormones, I had a craving for sweet
Yeah.
things. But now I'm just have on toast, the saltier the better.
Actually, that's pretty good. Maybe I was being a bit of a breakfast hater. You're right. I do like a good English breakfast. I do like a good Sunday roast. I think that's breakfast. Maybe that's not breakfast to people in England.
Sunday roast?
I don't know. Is that lunch? Is that brunch?
I've
I don't
never
know.
heard of anybody having a Sunday roast for breakfast. If you think about it, a full English is quite like
Yeah, heavy.
substantial. Yeah, heavy. A bit
Yeah.
like Sunday roast. So
That's
you could be
why.
onto something. Maybe it's a new trend.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I've got it fully twisted, but to me, I was like, that's a breakfast like experience, brunch experience. You sit down with your friends and you have like a Sunday roast and maybe a beer. Like, I don't know. That seems like breakfast to me.
I don't. I never.
Sounds rogue now that I've said it out loud.
I mean, maybe at 12?
But isn't brunch at 12?
It can be 11 though.
Is 11 not bad?
There's a huge difference for me
Really?
between brunch and like having I like Bloody Mary. That's
Oh yeah, I do too.
oh good.
I
Because
love
some
a
people are like,
Bloody
no, you don't, Sam. You're just
No.
making it up.
I respect it.
I think if I was to ever drink at 11 a.m., that would be my excuse.
Okay.
I don't really know where I was going with that. But yes, you can drink in the morning, you can have a roast in the morning if you want. But I've never heard of that before.
No rules.
Absolutely no rule. Your parents don't live here. Your
No.
family doesn't live here.
Mm-mm.
How does that make you feel? Do you feel the need to go back to Dubai quite a bit? Are there times that you go to Austria, for example, as well to visit family?
My family have actually left Dubai now. So they're back in Jordan. They've been there for a couple of years, I think after my brother left. They felt super comfortable in that space. And that makes sense. Family's there. I used to grow up finding the concept of homesickness really strange. Like, I've never felt homesick. I don't know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to miss people, but it's never bogged me down because I think having your phone next to you, you can call them whenever you want. It doesn't feel like they're that far away.
I reckon, and this is me being completely just, I don't read a lot of attachment style books. It might have something to do with your attachment style.
Ooh, tell me more.
Ooh,
I love
so
this.
I felt really homesick the first few months of me being at uni.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think if you receive the kind of love where you touch and you kind of like respond in that way, a phone call won't really be enough.
Fair, yeah.
That is my theory. I haven't really looked into it too much, but I think that's kind of maybe correct.
That could be it. That's very true. I mean, maybe from what I understand of attachment concepts, I don't know what the categories are. Speak to people is what I need most of the time.
You can be anxious avoidant in terms of your attachment style.
Okay.
And then you can be sort of okay. I don't know what the other scientific term is, where you're just like not anxious or avoidant. As an anxious person, you might, if you meet someone, either a friend or a boyfriend or whoever, you might want them to sort of be in your space.
Okay.
As a result of your anxiety, you might be like, okay, if you're here, that means you love me. And avoidant as well, like some people love their space.
Oh, interesting.
And they need their space. I think that's kind of all I know. Really. Before I get into a thesis about it.
I've always wondered if something was like off because I didn't feel homesick. I was always like, does this mean I don't love my family? That seems wrong. That seems incorrect because I absolutely adore my family. They're the best. Maybe it's just like the comfort in knowing that they're there without the proximity. I think because we grew up away from maybe wider family, it's never felt like, we needed to be in each other's space all the time. We would see each other when we saw each other and it felt like enough.
You're probably just a strong, independent woman. That's probably what it is.
I'd like to think that. I don't know if it is that. I'll take it.
A strong, independent woman who's able to manage her anxiety, and I think it's very brave to live in a place where you don't have people around you that you've known your whole life. And that is why I moved to South London, to prove to myself that I didn't have to be in North.
That's so sweet.
I'm curious to know, actually, because obviously as an expat yourself, are the majority of your friendships expats or are they mostly Londoners? Is there a mix?
It's a bit of a mix. I wouldn't say Londoners, actually. Not many London born and bred. A lot of them have moved to London since for university. I have a few English friends who are like from Manchester. I think it's just kind of international kids find other international kids and they share that experience. So they're easy to relate to. I've also never enjoyed bubbles, so I never wanted to stick to that format necessarily. I know a lot of people feel comfortable in that space where it's just expats, but I've always enjoyed the versatility of like talking to a bunch of different people with different experiences.
Have you found that meeting born and bred Londoners is a different experience to meeting people that are not from London?
Honestly, no. Maybe this is like my ignorance, but I feel like being in England and being in the UK kind of is more indicative of the way you interact with the space than specifically if you're from London or from Manchester. Maybe there are some real like passionate Londoners, but I've not come across them where it's entirely their identity. is a
I do love London.
Yeah.
I am an advocate for London. I'm an advocate for the tube. I'm an advocate
I do love the tube.
I'm an advocate for meeting people on Hinge. I was just thinking this the other day. I don't know if meeting people organically on a dance floor is really my thing.
I don't think that's a thing anymore.
No. I was at a club last week, 2 weeks ago, and the amount of people that just kind of come up to you and they're like,
oh really? They're scooching?
Hey! And I'm like, hey, what's your name?
Oh.
Sam.
Oh.
All right. And I'm like, I need the loo. And then I just
leave.
If you're on a dating app, there's a bit more vetting that goes on.
True.
And you have to be quite lucky if someone sets you up with someone as well and doesn't put pressure on,
oh, fun.
you know, them being like, oh, I can see you having kids, getting married. I think that adds pressure as well when you know the person and they know the person they're saying. I think, yeah, I'm pro meeting people online.
I love it. No, I think that's how things are going these days anyway. You have to embrace it.
It's how the turntables,
Yeah.
as Steve Carell said in The Office, I think.
I think so too.
If someone is maybe even in Dubai, in Jordan, in Austria, anywhere really in the world, is thinking about moving to London, what kind of tips or advice would you give to them, having been here for 8 years now? Congrats. And you don't want to leave yet. Congrats.
Not yet. No. If you're from a climate that I'm from, invest in a winter wardrobe. You do not understand. I had to learn how to layer for the first time in my life here. So learn how to layer. That's always super helpful. And honestly, just be open to new experiences is the best advice I can give. I was a little sheltered when I started. I didn't know if I wanted to go to the pub by myself and meet people. I didn't know if I was ready for that kind of... It's exposure, right? You're kind of very vulnerable in those spaces, but there's nothing wrong with being vulnerable. It'll only make you stronger, help you learn more about yourself, or bring you into friendship groups, new experiences. Just be open to it.
I was actually thinking about this yesterday as I was doing the dishes. If you go through bad stuff, it makes you better equipped the next time you go through bad stuff.
Definitely.
It makes you kind of, I don't want to say invincible, makes you a hero. So I do definitely agree.
I think a lot of people have this very romanticized idea of what living in London is, and it's like, oh, it's like living in South Kensington or Marylebone, and it's super safe, clean, easy. You have to be ready for the good and the bad, I think. If you're coming in expecting things to go exactly how you think it's going to go, you're just going to be disappointed. You need to be open-minded first and foremost. And if you are, then you're good. I think then you're ready.
A good life lesson, I would say. So this has been Sam, Ellie, and Sarah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye.